So I'm going to talk a little bit about darkness, the experience of it in this physical reality, and also its higher purpose. I remember after the Kundalini experience, this would have been back in 2008. I just basically reached the bottom, had enough, and had shed everything. Had shed my business, had shed my house, which was getting foreclosed on. I'd been a mortgage broker at the time, and this is right before the 2008 crash, so the mortgage brokers were being systematically eliminated through regulation. And we saw the writing on the wall, and we also saw these weapons of financial mass destruction being constructed and distributed through the mortgage brokers nationwide to orchestrate the 2008 financial crash for new laws which the banks, lobbyists, and attorneys wrote for themselves. That's a story for another day, but after shedding everything and going through this Kundalini awakening, which again, I didn't have any idea what that was, and I'll make a video about that another time. There was a process of trying to figure out who I was and what was going on. So I packed up everything and I just left. I didn't tell a soul. Threw away my cell phone, cut up my credit cards, and started accumulating cash, and just disappeared on the road for over a year. And during that process, I went through what a lot of people like to call the dark night of the soul. And it's kind of like, the experience of losing light, of hopelessness, of despair, feeling like you're chased by demons and possibly demonically possessed, and basically the end of life. Feeling that your life has completely ended, and the world has been taken over by darkness. So it's a complete psychological, physical, and emotional breakdown to where there's nothing left. And in that emptiness, I came to realize that emptiness was kind of the point. That void that comes as a result of experiencing all these things, the loss of friends, the loss of family, which you cut off. You cut them off. You had to cut them out of your life because they just wanted to pull you back to the old life, and they couldn't understand what you were going through or what you went through. I mean, how could they? It's not their fault. So in that void, that's when unexpectedly, one day you think you're being pursued by demons and your life is over and you're going to be destroyed. And then just out of the blue, I'm sitting on a cliff top out by La Jolla, California, and just suddenly feel this incredible rush of just pure gratitude and joy and love. And that's when I knew. That's when I knew that there was a metamorphosis happening, a transformation that was taking place inside the butterfly, from the caterpillar, so to speak. That this was a divine process, not a demonic process. The demons certainly felt like they were there, and they continued after that. This period didn't last that long, but I could see that they were part of the process that was necessary to cause a catalyst to create that metamorphosis, to create that transformation. And so look at the yin and yang symbol, and it tells the whole story right there, because basically we have this wave of darkness that comes over the top of us, and it can and does destroy people if we let it. But it also does something else that's very important. It brings the light up It brings the light inside of us up, a light that we didn't even know we had. The light of joy, of gratitude, of life, of being connected with the divine that that I certainly had never experienced in my life. And that can also bring up with it new creativity, new ideas, a purpose in life. And that's why when I started looking around and reading books and everything, I could see I wasn't alone in this. There's others that have gone through this process that have shed their entire lives. Because when you experience something, it's not the same as learning it or reading about it in a book. You know, you can't deny the experience. So if you were jumping out of an airplane, let's say, and you're hearing about it from somebody on the ground, well, those are two very different things, obviously. So it didn't matter that at the time I was technically almost broke and homeless, that I had lost my business and lost my home and lost my family. I'd never, ever been happier, even though I didn't know what was going to happen next. And I think that was part of the experience of that. Now, don't get me wrong, I wouldn't want to have to go through that again. That was the most difficult thing I ever did, but it was also the most unique and most incredible experience that I ever went through, because I knew I was being guided. I knew knew where to go next. I knew what to do next. You know, everything just kind of came. It just showed up, and it was a quest. It was an adventure, and suddenly, instead of watching movies and playing this Groundhog Day life, I was in a movie. I was in my movie, and I was the star of my movie, and you're the star of your movie. So who do you want to be? What character do you want to play? So I could see eventually that the darkness served a very important function. And I mean, I dove into the deep end of the ocean, and I was taken on a tour, probably because of my genealogy and my family history, perhaps past lives, I don't know, I don't remember them, but of the things that were related to my particular family's line. And it's a really dark and ugly history. It has to do with religion and politics on the macro scale, on the global stage, and very scary, very frightening stuff. And I was just shown one thing after another, after another, after another, after another. And I just get these little flashes of look into this, you know, look into this, look into this, look into this. And then I would dig into it. I'd go do the research, and I was just blown away, because what I found was just absolutely shocking and stunning. It was not at all what I had believed or what I had thought. And I could see how all the pieces connected, how everything was connected, all of it. None of this was random events the way that appeared in the world before the awakening. It was all connected. And there's a higher force that was orchestrating it all. And that became easier and easier to see. So in a sense, the awakening was kind of a backstage pass to see behind the veil and to see the players behind the veil and to listen to their narratives and see right through their narratives and see, okay, I see what's going on here, and I see why they're doing it. I mean, you know, when you look at things on the world stage, from a, let's just say, a military strategy point of view, they make perfect sense. Perfect sense. But if you're just viewing them as random acts and listening to the narrative of lies, of lies that they're telling, then it's going to appear completely different and random. And you know, the virtue signaling, that's what I was trying to think of, the virtue signaling that they constantly do to play people, to play them against themselves. And that's really kind of what the purpose of this video is about, is talking about that. So what is the purpose of darkness really? Is it really to destroy us? No, I don't think so. It's actually a teacher. That's what it is. It can destroy us, but usually that's by our own hand. It's us that destroy us. It's we allow it to let that happen. So if you view this reality and our experience in it as a canvas from a painter that has every shade in between, every shade of dark, all the way extreme dark, all the way to extreme light, and every slight difference in between, every shade of gray and light gray and light black and everything else. And that is the kind of contrast that is needed for spirit souls to make the choices, because this whole life is about choices. And we can make them consciously or unconsciously, and that's where we run into mistakes, is making them unconsciously. But when we view, when we make these choices unconsciously, we pay for it every time. We always pay for it. So by having those extremes of dark and light, we can see what we don't want and then choose what we do. It also helps us to discover who we are. By being exposed to these extreme dark events, it can show us what lies within ourselves. How do we react? How do we respond? Do we get emotionally charged with fear, with anger, with hatred? These are the warning signs. These are the things that that can destroy us. So it's very important to do the inner shadow work for that reason. The avoidance of darkness, the avoidance of exploration of one's own shadow inside, is also the blindness to the outer darkness in the world, because a lot of folks don't want to believe that this kind of dark exists in the world today, even though we've seen historically over and over and over that that the depths of darkness and evil that lie within the human soul are almost unlimited. And they certainly exist today, more than ever maybe. So a lot of times what we do is we just block that out. And even in the spiritual community, I see a lot of people doing this. They'll block it out. I don't want to look at that. Or somebody brings them information, and that's all it is information. Somebody brings them information and they suddenly project onto that person, oh, they're dark, they're evil, because they're showing me things I don't want to see, I don't want to know, I don't want to hear. All evolution and all growth come through the darkness. That's where you're going to grow the most, not by spiritually bypassing it. And so again, the avoidance of internal exploration is also an avoidance of external exploration. And so it's just, the whole universe is just a world of mirrors. Everything is reflected back to us. It's kind of the whole point. We get reflected, both sides of the spectrum, good and bad, what we like and what we don't like. And because of our programming, we tend to blame those people instead of actually looking at ourselves and saying, oh, why did I react that way? Because if, in truth, we understood and had integrated these things, then we wouldn't get emotionally reactive, would we? We would just stay neutral and say, okay, they're entitled to their beliefs and their opinions, and And so going back to the initial stage of this awakening, what happened is I had all of my beliefs blown up simultaneously, just exploded. So all of my beliefs about my country, all of my beliefs about my culture, and basically everything shattered into a million pieces. And what happens is the psyche is kind of like a person in the middle of the ocean treading for water and just looking for something to grab onto, but there's nothing to grab onto. So it's just like trying to grab onto something stable, something to keep it from going underwater, because when that kind of thing happens and you have all of your beliefs explode at once, beliefs that you've held your whole life. And see, that's the problem, is we think those beliefs are us, or our identity, and we attach to them. That's very dangerous. Very dangerous. They're not. They're just beliefs. And just like the word says, there's clues everywhere. Be, lie, F. It means we're being a lie and we're failing. The universe has a sense of humor and it puts clues all over the place, but we have to have eyes to see them, and we have to be willing to look. And so that's why a lot of people won't listen to us or listen to you when it comes to trying to bring truth to them, because the mind sees when it's ready to see, the soul wakes up when it's ready, and there's no changing that. We can't change other people, but we can certainly change ourselves, and we can certainly do our own work. And by doing that, it does have an effect, I find, on those around us. So that's the reason I'm doing this channel, is for that reason. I'm sure there are others who are perhaps somewhere in the stages of the same process that I went through, and I think it can be very helpful. So, there for, goodness, I think several years, for 2 or 3 years after that Kundalini awakening and getting that backstage pass and having my beliefs blown up, it's the mind is walking this tightrope of, well, insanity on one hand, and or being checked into a mental institution, or death on the other hand, suicide, whatever. Like I said, I was getting messages, and one of the messages I kept seeing was the yin and yang in the form of a 6 and a 9, which was a message. It was a symbolic message saying, balance out. Balance out. And I did over time. Over time, I balanced out. I learned to operate in both worlds, have one foot in the same world that I'd grown up, because I still recognize the world I grew up in. I recognize the people and the things going on. But it was almost like I had been transported to a different dimension, because now I was seeing things and understanding things from a completely different, usually opposite nature, almost like an alien that had crash landed on a hostile planet. Because that's the way I viewed it. These people were doing absolutely crazy things, which only served to harm them. And so, what I will say is about the shadow work and the inner exploration, and be willing to go to those places of extreme darkness, is because that's where the growth is. That's where our own evolution is. But also, and maybe even of greater importance, is that what we're not aware of can be used against us in the court of this universe. Our ignorance can be used against us. That's why the virtue signaling. That's why the appealing to the nature of what is good in human beings. But I'm sure I'll have a lot more to say about this in another video, but the bottom line is at the end of the day, this is just divide and conquer. This is just turning everybody against everybody. Be kind, be brave, and be courageous. Take care.